I don't even know why that line stuck with me. Her voice low, almost like she was joking, but not really. Don't look at me like that. Or do. The words have been chewing at me ever since. It happened at the auto shop of all places. Not exactly candlelight and violins. Just the smell of motor oil, cold air sneaking in through the garage doors, and the constant buzz of fluorescent lights overhead. My hands were black with grease, and I was leaning over the hood of a customer's Toyota when I felt someone watching. You know that prickle on the back of your neck? That's how I knew it was her before I even turned. Claire. My mom's best friend. Or at least that's the easy label. She was standing a few feet away, arms crossed, sunglasses still perched on her head even though it was cloudy outside. She looked like she didn't quite belong there. Hair pulled back too neatly for a place like this, cashmere sweater brushing against her wristwatch, the faintest perfume fighting against the smell of rubber and coolant. You work here now? She asked, tilting her head, voice carrying just enough teasing to sound casual. Yeah, for a while. I wiped my hands on a rag, suddenly too aware of how young I must have looked. 23 and still trying to fill out my coveralls, hair sticking to my forehead with sweat. She smiled, but it wasn't a full smile. More like the kind you give when you're thinking of something else. Your mom mentioned it once. I didn't think she meant full-time. I shrugged. Guess I like fixing things. That earned a soft laugh. Not the kind people give when they think you're funny, but the kind they give when they're remembering something about themselves. She leaned against the counter like she had all the time in the world, though I knew she probably didn't. She always seemed busy, weekend trips, business dinners, the kind of life where people never stop moving. What's wrong with the car? I asked, glad to have something safe to focus on. Brakes feel slow, like I have to push harder than I used to. I nodded, checked the paperwork, and crouched near the tire. The whole time, though, I felt her eyes on me. Not in an obvious way. More like she was tracing something, cataloging me in her head. When I glanced up, I caught her watching, and instead of looking away like most people would, she held it. Just for a second too long. That's when she said it. Don't look at me like that. Or do. She broke eye contact immediately after, brushing invisible lint from her sleeve, leaving me with my mouth half open and no clue what to do with my hands. My chest felt too tight, like I'd inhaled too much exhaust. I'll, run a test on it, I muttered, ducking back down, grateful for the cover of the wheel well. My ears burned. The silence stretched, filled only by the hum of tools and the faint ring of a phone in the office. She didn't say anything else, just waited until I finished, thanked me with that same unreadable half-smile, and slipped out the door, leaving the air heavier than when she'd walked in. The other guys at the shop didn't notice a thing. They just kept working, music playing low from a radio in the corner. But I couldn't shake it. That one line, that look, that night, I kept replaying her voice in my head, like I missed something, or maybe wanted something. The second time we talked, it wasn't in the shop. It was in my mom's kitchen, of all places. I'd come by to grab some leftovers after work, still smelling faintly of oil and sweat, and there she was, sitting at the counter like she belonged there. A glass of white wine in her hand, a stack of unopened mail beside her. She looked tired. Not the kind of tired you fix with sleep, but the kind that seeps into your posture, the way your shoulders carry themselves. Hey, I said, dropping my keys a little too loudly on the table. Her head lifted, and for a second her eyes softened. Then she straightened, pulling that same careful composure around her like a jacket. Hey, long day. Yeah. I opened the fridge, letting the cool air hit my face longer than necessary before pulling out the container I came for. She watched me while I spooned cold pasta into a bowl. I could feel it. Her gaze wasn't heavy, but it lingered, like she was trying to figure out something about me that didn't fit. You're good at this, she said suddenly. I turned. At eating cold leftovers? That pulled a laugh out of her, short and real. Her hand brushed her temple as if embarrassed. No, at the shop. Your mom mentioned how fast you pick things up. You must have patience. Patience. Not exactly what I'd call it. But I didn't correct her. Guess so. Her wine glass tapped softly against the counter as she set it down. She stared at the rim for a moment too long before speaking again. Sometimes I wish I had that patience. There was something in the way she said it. Not about cars. Not about work. Something else bleeding through. The kind of thing you don't ask about because if you do, it becomes too real. I nodded even though I wanted to ask. Wanted to know what could make her eyes look that far away while she sat 3 feet in front of me. Her hands, resting on the counter, twitched once, like she almost reached for something. Then she curled them into herself, nails pressing lightly against her palm. I sat across from her, bowl forgotten, and tried not to make it obvious that I was noticing everything. The faint smudge of mascara beneath her eye, the way she pushed her laugh back into her throat, the small pause before she answered any question, like words weighed more for her than they did for other people. We sat like that for a while, talking about nothing, about the weather, about the broken hinge on the cabinet door, about how my mom still bought the same brand of pasta sauce she'd been buying since I was a kid. Normal. Safe. But underneath I could feel it, the same pull I'd felt in the shop. Unspoken. Stretching tight between us. At one point, I caught her looking at me, lips parting like she was on the edge of saying something that mattered. But she closed it back up, took another sip of wine instead. She looked at me like she wanted to say something, but didn't, and that silence felt louder than words. It was raining the night it almost happened. Not a dramatic storm, just steady, soaking rain that turned the street outside my mom's house into a blur of reflections. I'd stopped by late, after closing at the shop, and found Claire still there. The others had gone. My mom asleep upstairs, the TV humming softly in the background with nobody watching. She was sitting at the kitchen table again, this time with a half-finished plate of food and her phone face down beside her. A single lamp lit the corner of the room, throwing her in warm light against the shadows. "You're up late," I said, dropping my jacket over a chair. She smirked faintly. "So are you." I poured myself a glass of water, sat across from her. For a few minutes, it was quiet except for the rain ticking against the windows. Then her phone buzzed. She glanced at the screen, and I saw something flicker across her face before she turned it over again. Her smile didn't return this time. "Everything okay?" I asked. She nodded quickly, too quickly. "Yeah, just nothing important." But her shoulders told another story. We talked anyway. About work, about nothing, circling around the silence she was keeping. I found myself watching her more than listening. How she kept touching her glass but never drinking. How her eyes drifted toward the window like she wanted to be anywhere but here, and yet she stayed. At one point, she laughed, soft and sudden, at something I said, and it wasn't guarded this time. For a second she looked younger, freer, like a version of herself she didn't let out often. "You should laugh more," I said before I could stop myself. Her eyes found mine. "Careful. You start noticing things like that, you'll see more than you should." Something shifted in the air then. Close, heavy. My hand rested on the table, fingers tapping once against the wood, too close to hers. She didn't move away. Another buzz from her phone broke it. She flinched slightly, then pushed the device aside as if it had burned her. "It's just complicated," she murmured, almost to herself. I wanted to ask. I wanted to tell her I noticed the way her eyes dimmed when she said it, the way her strength looked borrowed tonight. Instead, I sat there, the words heavy in my throat, unwilling to fall out. The rain kept falling, a steady rhythm against the silence between us. I could feel my pulse in my fingertips, feel the pull of her just inches away. My hand was halfway to hers when she said, "You should go now," and I did. But only my body left that room. I didn't plan to see her that night. I'd stopped by my mom's place to drop off some tools she needed for the garage, but the house was empty, except for Claire. She was sitting on the back porch, wrapped in a blanket, a mug of something steaming in her hands. The air was cool, damp from the rain earlier, and the smell of wet earth hung heavy. The porch light threw her face into half shadow, half glow. I almost backed away before she noticed me. Almost. Instead, she lifted her head, met my eyes, and nodded toward the empty chair beside her. "You're here," she said softly, not as a question. I sat, my jacket still damp against the wooden chair. For a while we said nothing. The neighborhood was quiet, just the hum of crickets, the occasional drip from the gutters. "You ever feel like—" she started, then stopped. She took a slow sip, stared into her mug as if it could answer for her. "Like what?" I asked. Her shoulders shifted under the blanket. "Like life didn't turn out how you pictured. And suddenly you're looking around wondering if you missed it. Whatever it is." The honesty in her voice startled me. Not because of what she said, but because she'd said it to me. I leaned back, staring at the dark yard. "Yeah, I think about that all the time." She gave me a look, half curious, half skeptical. "You're too young for that." "Doesn't feel that way?" I said quietly. We sat in it, that space where words don't quite land, but hang heavy between you. Finally, I asked the question that had been burning holes in my chest since the shop, since her kitchen, since the rain. "What are we doing?" Her head turned slowly toward me. The blanket slipped slightly, exposing her wrist, pale in the porch light. "We're not doing anything." But her voice betrayed her. Too soft, too careful. I shook my head, laughed once, humorless. "It doesn't feel like nothing." Her lips parted, then closed again. The silence pressed hard, like a hand against my throat. I wanted her to say it, to name the thing neither of us could seem to kill or admit. Instead, she held my gaze too long, her eyes searching, almost pleading, before dropping back to her mug. "Maybe we should stop," she whispered. "Stop what?" She didn't answer. I leaned forward, elbows on my knees, staring at the floorboards between us. "We can't keep pretending this is just—" I cut myself off, the word dying in my throat. Another long silence. The kind that makes you aware of your heartbeat, of how close another person's breathing is to yours. When I finally looked up, she was already watching me. She didn't say anything, just looked at me, like she was already mourning something we never even had. It was late again, and I just finished helping my mom carry groceries in, when Claire asked if I could take a look at the hinge on her car door. "It's stuck sometimes," she said. "Nothing major." So we stood in her driveway, under the pale wash of a streetlight, the night air cool against my skin. I crouched with a flashlight, fiddling with the latch, while she leaned against the hood, arms folded, like she was holding herself together. When I stood, wiping my hands on my jeans, I noticed she wasn't looking at the car. She was staring down the street, her jaw set, like she'd drifted somewhere far away. "You okay?" I asked. She hesitated. Then, "You remind me of someone." The words landed softer than I expected, but heavy. I waited, giving her space. "My brother," she said finally, almost whispering. "He was younger than me by a lot. He used to hang around the garage with my dad. Always fixing things, always curious. And then one day, he wasn't there anymore." Her voice caught, not dramatic, just a small break, like a note held too long. I shifted, not knowing what to do with my hands. "I didn't know you had a brother. Most people don't." She traced the rim of the hood with her fingers, slow, deliberate. "He died when he was 22. Car accident. My dad never touched the garage after that. And I—" She stopped, pressed her lips together. The night grew quieter, like the world leaned in closer to listen. I wanted to say something, anything, but every word felt like it would bruise if I spoke it too fast. So I just stayed there, with her, letting the silence hold what she couldn't. "You even laugh like him," she added softly, almost to herself. Something shifted in my chest then, something I hadn't expected. Whatever had been pulling us together wasn't just about now. It was tangled up in her past, in someone she'd lost, in ghosts I hadn't known I was echoing. "I'm sorry," I said, because it was the only thing that didn't feel wrong. She shook her head. "Don't be." Strange, painful, but not in the way you'd think. More like I can breathe for a second. Like he's here, somehow. Her eyes met mine then, not guarded, not teasing, not even hesitant. Just open, raw in a way I hadn't seen before. She took a breath like she hadn't allowed herself to in years. And for the first time, she looked at me without fear. The night it finally broke open wasn't planned. Nothing about us ever was. I'd been sitting on the porch steps, nursing a beer after a long shift, when she slipped outside. No announcement, no careful greeting. Just the soft creak of the door and the brush of her sweater sleeve as she passed by. She settled beside me, close enough that I could feel the warmth of her without touching. For a long while, neither of us spoke. The crickets filled the space, the occasional car rolling past in the distance. It wasn't awkward anymore, not like before. Just waited. Finally, she said, "I shouldn't be here." I didn't look at her. "Then why are you?" The silence stretched. She exhaled slowly, her breath carrying the faintest trace of wine. "Because I don't want to be anywhere else." The words hit harder than if she'd confessed anything more direct. I turned then, and for once she didn't look away. Her eyes were glassy. Not with tears exactly, but with something softer, something surrendered. "You know this is complicated," she whispered. "I know." My voice cracked, honest. Her hand rested on her lap, fingers flexing like she wanted to fold them into fists but didn't. Without thinking, I set mine beside hers. Not touching, just there. The distance between them felt electric, unbearable. When our fingers finally brushed, it wasn't dramatic. No rush, no crash. Just the simplest connection, skin against skin, fragile and human. She didn't pull away. Her head tipped forward until her temple touched my shoulder, the weight of it light but anchoring. I sat still, hardly breathing, terrified that if I moved too quickly it would shatter. We didn't say it. Neither of us dared to. Instead, we stayed in that suspended space, where everything unspoken finally felt safe to exist. I could feel her guard dissolving. Not gone, but lowered enough that she wasn't hiding anymore. For the first time, she wasn't my mom's best friend, or the woman twice my age, or the figure carrying secrets I didn't fully understand. She was just her, and I was just me. The crickets kept their rhythm, the night air cool around us, her hands slowly curling until her fingers threaded with mine. She didn't say she loved me, but she let her guard down, and that was louder than any "I love you" ever could be. Strange, looking back now. Not strange in the sense of regret, but in the way some moments feel almost impossible when you try to explain them out loud. Like they shouldn't have happened, and yet, there they are, permanent. That night on the porch changed everything. Not with fireworks or some grand declaration. No, it was quieter than that. Smaller, but real. I remember the weight of her leaning into me, the way our hands fit together like it was the first time either of us had allowed something to just be what it was. No masks, no pretense. Just two people, different ages, different stories. Meeting in a place where words finally didn't matter. I'd always thought love had to be loud, obvious. But with her, I learned it could be softer, slower. A kind of love that wasn't about chasing or proving, but about noticing, about being there. She taught me that people carry whole histories inside them. Losses, regrets, missed chances that shape the way they move through the world. And sometimes, the best thing you can do isn't to fix it or fill the silence. It's to sit in it with them. To let them know they don't have to carry it alone. And me? I think I grew up in that silence. In the space between what we said and what we couldn't. She never gave me a neat label for what we were. Neither did I. Maybe we didn't need one. All I know is she let her guard down. She let me see her, really see her, in a way most people never had. And in that, I found a kind of closeness I didn't know was possible. Do we still talk? Sometimes. Not every day. Life keeps moving as it always does. But I don't measure what happened by how long it lasted. I measure it by what it left behind. And what it left was clarity. About what matters, about what connection actually feels like when it's honest, even if it's complicated. If there's one thing I've learned, it's this. Love doesn't always fit neatly into the stories we're told. Sometimes it's messy, quiet, unexpected. Sometimes it's not forever. But if it's real, if it changes you even a little, it's worth remembering. She didn't say she loved me, but in her silence, I heard it anyway. And maybe that's enough. So what about you? Have you ever had a connection that didn't fit the rules, but still changed the way you see love?